Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Saturday, April the 5th, 2025. And on this day, we're going to go right back to not 2003. We're going to go back to, and this is a fighter everyone knows a fair bit about here in Australia, Markus Bayer, the German champion. A few times over, I think he was, but we remember his infamous fight with Danny Green when Danny Green had him on toast for the WBC super middleweight title and blew it. Got a little bit excited, did Danny, and blew a golden opportunity to take that belt, got him himself disqualified. I think it was in the 5th round, and it was defeated by Markus Bayer in the rematch a few months later. But on this day, Markus Bayer actually beat another Danny Green opponent, the Canadian Eric Lucas. So he beat him by decision to win the WBC super middleweight title. And that, I'm pretty sure, maybe that was the fight before Danny Green actually fought Markus Bayer. I mean, they all fought each other. Danny Green, apart from the Bayer fight, to go to Canada and fight Eric Lucas as well was a monumental task, and he beat him in front of about 10,000 screaming Canadians. No easy task from Danny, but the three of them had a little trilogy sort of thing going between them, a triangle type of effect happening with their fights. And that was 2003. That was, I think it was in Germany, that fight. So Markus Bayer beating Eric Lucas in Germany today for that belt. And in 2014, Mexican Marco Antonio Rubio knocked out Italian Domenico Spada in the 10th round to win the WBC, it's an interim middleweight title. Sorry, I thought it was the title. So interim middleweight title in Chihuahua, Mexico. And also on this day, we've got to go right back to 1915, and Jess Willard defeated Jack Johnson after 26 rounds to win the world heavyweight title. 1915, and there were talks that maybe the fix might have been in on that fight too, because there should have been no way that Jess Willard was beating Jack Johnson, but he did, and won the world heavyweight title. All right, on to this week's events. Well, it's really about one event this week, isn't it? Tim Tszyu, Joey Spencer. We had the press conference yesterday, and probably went sort of the way I suppose we would have expected. Not a lot of fireworks. All the main fighters were there. Of course, the main event fighters were up there. That's a given. But they started with, I think it was Brent Walton and Isaias Setti. And I thought both boys spoke really well, really respectful. No fireworks that we normally get, which I think is good. Sometimes these undercard fighters just forget they're undercard fighters, and it's not all about them, and they think they have to talk it up and get disrespectful and start with the insults and all that sort of stuff. And I just don't think it goes down well when you're a 4-round undercard fighter. But I thought, Brent Walton and Isaias Setti spoke really well. Walton is the hometown fighter. I think he's 3-1, and Isaias Setti, I think he's 2-3-1. I'll preview all these fights tomorrow anyway, guys, before the actual card. But I thought they both spoke really well. Brett Walton just desperate to get the win in front of his hometown. He's a Newcastle boy, so I think that'll be a good fight. The next one was Callum Peters. Now, his opponent wasn't there, but of course, does he need to be there? It's all about Callum Peters, isn't it? He looks like there's a little bit of a larrikin, is Callum Peters. He actually had an amateur fight last weekend. Now, this is just the anomalies in boxing at the moment, where you can have an amateur fight one weekend and then a pro fight the next weekend and then go back to the amateurs the next weekend. I don't like it. I understand that's the way of the world these days, but I just think you're one or the other. I just like the old-fashioned system where you're an amateur until you decide to become a professional. I don't know how you can be an amateur and then be a professional and then be an amateur again. I don't understand it, but that's the way of the world. I think is it 10 fights or something? I don't know. I've got no idea, but I don't like it. But anyway, Callum Peters had the amateur fight last week, having the pro fight against Lehman, I think his name is. They have got an amateur history, and Callum Peters took great pleasure in just pointing out that he defeated his opponent in the amateurs and will defeat him this weekend, which I think is a given. They don't put fighters like Callum Peters on these types of cards at this stage of his career to lose. So you would back Callum Peters. One fighter that wasn't there, and I've been pretty vocal about this. Why haven't we seen Cooper O'Connell? Now, if you're not really a hardcore fan, you might be saying Cooper who? Well, Cooper's the son of Shotgun Shannon O'Connell, but he's just turned pro, or this is his first pro fight, coming off the World Amateur Champions, Youth World Championships as the gold medal winner. I said the other night on the Fight Week program, why wouldn't you make it more of a big deal of Cooper? Look, maybe there's not a spot for him at the press conference. I understand that. The media are there for, the main fights. I understand that. But haven't seen him I don't think he was at the open workouts. Haven't seen any press about him. Nothing from No Limit to say, hey, look at us, No Limit, doing great things for Australian boxing. We've just signed another prospect out of the amateurs, world amateur champion, Cooper O'Connell. They don't even have to say that he's the youth world champion. When's that had anything to do with promoting themselves up with No Limit? They come up with all sorts, or George Rose comes up with all sorts of little lines that he reels out. So, as I said, you don't even have to say he's a youth world champion. Just say, No Limit, see, we're getting behind amateur boxing in Australia. We've just signed world amateur champion, Cooper O'Connell, and he's going to be on the card. We've got nothing. Now, I understand the young kid, he just wants to fight on the card, and that's great, but why just put him as the first fight on the card and not give him any press at all? They've given Callum Peters a fair bit of press, and I would say, hey, good that Callum Peters went to the Olympics, didn't do anything at the Olympics, by the way, didn't win a medal, I don't think, or did he? Did he win no, he didn't win a medal, and they've given him all the fanfare, and Cooper O'Connell just won the World Amateur Championship, and there's got nothing. Not saying one has to be over the other, but why have you got all the attention on Callum and just nothing on a world champion in the stable that you should be getting behind? But anyway, that's their prerogative. It's my little 2 cents worth anyway. But who was next? Was it Mikhailovich and Blake Wells? This is no particular order here, guys. I don't know what order the fights are going to be in, but I think Andre Mikhailovich was sort of caught a little bit off guard because Blake Wells was very respectful towards Andre, didn't trash talk, didn't say anything, just said, look, I respect Andre, he's a good fighter, I'm just here to compete and do my best and win the fight, as of course he's going to say that. And Andre Mikhailovich is, as we all know, very, very used to getting involved heavily with his opponents as far as the trash talk goes and the barbs going back and forth. Well, he didn't really have anything. And I always get a little bit worried when I see fighters like Andre Mikhailovich on the stage about what they're going to say, but I was really impressed that he recognised that Blake Wells wasn't that type of fighter that he needed to do that with, and just said, look, he respects Blake Wells as well, and they just hope to put on a good fight and he gets the win. That's what we want to see, guys. That's what makes me want to see this fight more than just two guys just throwing more barbs outside the ring than they do inside the ring. So so I'm looking forward to that fight, and I did say the other night that don't be surprised if there's an upset in that fight with Blake Wells beating Andre Mikhailovich. I know a lot of people don't really know much about Blake, but I can assure you he can fight. I think he's had the 2 losses, both to Tej Singh. Tej Singh is just an absolute spoiler type of fighter, and he just didn't match up well with him, but I've got a feeling with Mikhailovich where he's got a bit of room to get to do his work. Don't be surprised if there's an upset there. But that should be a really good fight. Then we had the big boys. And forgive me if I've forgotten anyone, guys. But Brendan Grush, the Bull. He's up against Liam Taliva. Is it Taliva? Taliva, I'm going to call him. Can't even get my own name right sometimes, guys. Yeah, look, I was surprised that Brendan Grush, I don't like to say it was so lippy. I mean, I thought he was just, or has been in the past, just, the Newcastle battler, the Bull, just an honest, hard-working guy, gets in there and doesn't care who he fights and just bowls people over, and an exciting fighter. And I just, from what I've saw in the past, I didn't see him as that sort of trash talker, and he was doing a fair bit of it yesterday, getting right into Taliva, who I thought handled himself really, really well. But I was surprised. Now, maybe I've missed it in the past with Grush. Maybe he's always had a bit to say, but I always, as I said, just saw him as that big, sort of very likeable type of guy who just trains. He's not the most skilled guy in the world, but he trains hard, gets in there and has a crack and and he either gets bowled over or he bowls the other guys over. That's what I thought. I didn't sort of see him as this top-line elite fighter, and I get the feeling that listening to him talk yesterday that that's sort of the way he feels. Now I know you've got to back yourself in the ring, but I don't know. It was just me. I just felt a little bit awkward and a bit cringe for me the way he was carrying on with everything, trying to goad Liam Taliva. Now maybe he was told to get things going with the boys. I mean, the first fight was like about 4 minutes of just absolute pandemonium, wasn't it? In the first fight, Taliva dropped Grush in the first round. Grush dropped Taliva at the end of the round and then dropped him for good at the start of the second round. And it was an exciting fight. I think it was the fight of the year, wasn't it? I don't know how you can have a fight of the year that goes 4 minutes, but anyway, it was. And I've been really looking forward to the fight. But just a little bit here and there about the way Brendan Grush tried to really push the issue with Liam Taliva, who, as I said, I thought was really classy and said it the way it was. And one comment, though, that did sort of make me sort of just smirk a little bit was that when Brendan was going at Liam Taliva and Liam Taliva said, well, about the knockout, of course, in the first fight. And Taliva's like, well, that's all you got, mate. That's all you got. Well, yeah, he knocked you out. Of course, that's all he's got. And it's the biggest thing of all that he knocked him out. But no, look, it's good banter. Let's hope the second fight tomorrow matches the first one. And no, we get another all-out war. I would think that that Liam Taliva will probably box a lot more cautiously this time. I don't think he rated Brendan Grush at all last time. Dropped him, of course, then tried to get him out of there, and it went pear-shaped. I've got a feeling Brendan Grush will come out very aggressive, but I think Liam Taliva might be a little bit more patient than what he was last time. Come on, man. We've been that way. This way. Right, then on to the main fight. Tim Tszyu and Joey Spencer. And as always, Tim looked a little bit testy. Well, he didn't look testy. He started off okay, but then he got a little bit testy, which can happen when you've just had enough of interviews and press conferences and weigh-ins and all this sort of stuff. What have I done there? I must have deleted. There you go. I think I deleted my notes. Doesn't matter. Don't need notes today. Joey Spencer turned up. He was 15 minutes late. But what a gentleman he is. He said, look, I'm really sorry. They tried to sort of work it up. There's never a dull moment. There's always a controversy. Joey Spencer hasn't turned up, but come on. I think we can all see past that. He turned up, he apologised, said, look, I'm really sorry. I didn't realise I was late. And apologised to everyone out there that turned up and the promoters, everyone else, the broadcasters, and just carried on. That is class. That's the way you conduct yourself at a press conference, especially in a foreign country. So really impressed with Joey Spencer. When they spoke, look, I think Joey Spencer said all the right things. Then Tim was the same. He said all the right things and all the stuff they probably said 20 or 30 times this week. You could tell that both of them had just had enough. And at this stage, you're about to start to cut weight for the last time. You're sick of the questions. You're sick of the training. You're sick of everything. The fight mentality starts to kick in. And Tim, I think he said something about with the judges, and that's what got Joey Spencer riled up. And then they sort of went back and forth a little bit with it. Tim, I don't know whether it was premeditated by Joey Spencer to maybe try and get a little bit of niggle into the fight because he jumped on Tim and probably for the first time showed a little bit of angst towards Tim. And again, I don't know whether that was by design, but Tim did bite back, but it was more of along the lines of, yeah, whatever, mate, whatever. Just get me out of here. I just want to fight or whatever. And, it did get a little bit spicy. Not as spicy as obviously a lot of other press conferences you go to, but in these two guys' minds, that was probably as spicy as they're ever going to get at a press conference. But anyway, you need a little bit of tension in there. They did the face-off. They shook hands a couple of times. So I think overall, it's all very, very respectful. But yeah, we have, it looks like we've got a fight tomorrow. The weigh-in's today. Apparently Joey Spencer is doing it a little tough, although he did look pretty good yesterday. Tim Tszyu, he'll make the weight no problem at all. Yeah, you would think that Joey Spencer, I know these rumours get out about weight cuts or weight problems and the fact that he had a hoodie on the other day and a beanie in heat. Well, that's just things that some fighters do, just to help with that last weight cut before they weigh in. So I don't think there's anything to read into that. I thought he looked very healthy yesterday, and the fact he's been here 3 weeks, I don't think there'll be a problem. I think he'll be fine. You don't come out 3 weeks on 3 weeks' notice and fail to make weight. You know, it's different if you come out here a few days before. That might be a bit different, but no, I think he should be okay. It's interesting too, with everything's been said about Tim Tszyu. I said yesterday they've talked about the psychologist, they've talked to the cup man, they've talked about his grandfather Boris and everyone else. Well, they actually had an interview with his wife. It was only a quick interview I saw on one of the websites yesterday, and you don't really, I think it's Alexa, you don't really hear much from her. And they actually interviewed her, I think it was for Code Sports, and she spoke really, really well. And it was really interesting to get an insight into the events, what goes on behind the scenes at this level. You know, but you don't ever hear it from the wife's point of view. It's all about all the girlfriends, partners, whatever it is, even just the parents or whatever. But she sort of described the experience in Orlando when Tim got knocked out by Murtazayev, and she had a bit of a premonition before the fight that things weren't right. And I think she said it was her dad said, look, you know, have you considered telling Tim he should pull out after this premonition? And she said, well, yeah, how good would that look? You know, fight cancelled because wife says so. So obviously it didn't happen, but she said she sat next to Kostya, and how hard it was. You know, she said in between rounds, I think it was the second round, she said, Costa said to her, look, don't panic, he'll be right, he'll come back. Obviously he didn't. But yeah, you sometimes, you know, especially with everyone online who sometimes, you know, they love to lay the boots into fighters or just athletes in general and don't realise what goes on behind the scenes with their family life and their partners and even their kids if they see it as well. Because she did say they got a lot of hate after that, online messages to her and Tim, and even to the point where I think a carload full of guys pulled up beside her in the car and had a crack at her as well at the lights or something, I think she said. I mean, yeah, this is stuff we don't sort of hear too much about, but she did say that after the fight, they had to go to the hospital for 4 hours and they had to sit there while Tim got his tests and everything done, and just how hard it's been. So as I said, you don't really realise what everyone goes through and what happens behind the scenes. But it was good to hear her perspective anyway, a different perspective, because we hear from the trainers and managers and promoters and everyone else. We never really hear from the partners. I thought it was refreshing, even though it was only a quick interview. Really liked what Alex had to, I think it's Alex or Alexa. Yeah, very, very well spoken. I think that's it. So tomorrow we'll do a fight preview tomorrow morning, guys, on the whole card. Just a couple other quick things. I'd see they're up in arms in England with the pay-per-view price for Chris Eubank and Conor Benn, £22. So I think is that about $40 Australian or $45 Australian. Initially I thought, well, geez, what are you getting excited about? We've got to pay $70 tomorrow for Tim Tszyu, but apparently it's obviously part of the pay-per-view on DAZN. A lot of people say, well, hang on, we're paying our subscription. How does this qualify as a pay-per-view? I think it's $25 US over there as well. So I sort of get it. I probably haven't got a problem that they charge for it in the UK. It happens to us all the time here in Australia. Say a Tim Tszyu fight or a Jai Pattaya fight or George Kambosos fight, so it might be free to everyone else in the world and we've got to pay for it in Australia. I haven't got a problem with that. I don't like it, but I understand from a business perspective. So I would expect in England it would be the same. Charge everyone a price, but have it free on pay-per-view. Free on DAZN for everyone else around the world. So, but obviously that's not going to happen. So 25 in the US. I wonder I'll have to check and see what it's going to be here in Australia. I'm probably thinking it'll be like $20 or something like that. It won't be a lot. Another fight speaking of England, they're talking about the Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois fight being in July at Wembley Stadium. Now, of course, lots of other things in progress at the moment. The IBF has mandated Dubois to fight Derek Chisora, which I really hope doesn't happen. So, but he can get out of that if he fights a unification fight with Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk was also supposed to maybe fight Joseph Parker. Of course, Joseph Parker was supposed to fight Dubois earlier in the year and it didn't happen. I'd be really, yeah, disappointed for Joe Parker if the fight does happen. I know it makes all the sense in the world. Unified world champion again, heavyweight title fight. I get it. But I just don't think, I know it's a strange thing to say, I just don't think Dubois has done enough to warrant the rematch. Well, maybe he has. He beat Joshua. But I think what I'm probably trying to say is Joseph Parker's done more. I know he hasn't won the belt, but it wasn't his fault that Dubois pulled out. And he has been on an absolute tear lately, Joseph Parker, and he deserves his shot. So even though that is the case, you would probably think that, yeah, the Dubois and Usyk rematch will take place in July, but sometimes boxing just isn't fair, is it? It sometimes has its moments and tests our patience and our loyalty, but we always go back to it, don't we? But guys, look, I think that's going to do it for today. Apart from the press conference and everything, not really a lot happened yesterday. I'm sure something will pop up, but again, I will do the preview tomorrow morning before the fights, the main card, that is. I did do it the other night on Fight Week, actually, but I'll quickly run through it again tomorrow. I'll give the weights and all that for the fights. Just go over it again, a quick review of the whole card, some last-minute comments and notes and whatever it might be, and then we'll get into it for the big day. Should be an awesome day. We've got it on at the pub, and we've had a lot of inquiries about it, so really hoping we get a nice old crowd to turn up, and we can really springboard our fight coverage to being the home of combat sports in Bendigo, Victoria. So if you're in the area, make sure you call in for a beer and watch the Tim Tszyu Joey Spencer card. So guys, until tomorrow, have a great Saturday. I'll catch you tomorrow.